On behalf of Pur-Logic Solutions, I would like to welcome everyone who was able to join us for today's webinar showcasing Sage Alerts and Workflow as part of our ongoing Get More from Your Sage 300 software series. A big welcome to Greg from Sage Alerts and Workflow. And just a quick note that we are recording today's webinar, and we will send the recording in a follow-up email after the event, and we will also be posting it on our YouTube channel and on our website. Following Greg's presentation, we'll make some time for some Q&A, so feel free to enter any questions in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. I'll send it over now to Greg.
Perfect, thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Angela, for doing this and getting in your customer, prospects, suspects involved in it. We really do appreciate the time that you're taking today to do this. So let's see if I can advance that. So a little history, if I could, because, well, let's face it, I'm old. 20 years ago, ERP applications, when you wanted to get data out of anything, and a lot of you, our 300 customers, or prior to that, you were AgPack customers, and you know what it was like to work with dongles and things like that, where you trying to get data from the solution or from the application was really difficult. So you had to go and find someone who could do that, and then get on a queue, and they would pull that information out. In today's world, we've got all kinds of great tools. We've got business intelligence, artificial intelligence, we got BI tools, we've got all kinds of things to get that information from it. Where Sage Alerts and Workflow comes in, it's business activity monitoring. So think of it, instead of you having to go in and dig in through the system to find out what you're looking for, we're on the inside of the application yelling back at you saying, hey, you need to be aware of that. So what do we do with that information? How do you get it? How do you deal with it? All those things you've had to deal with, where Sage Alerts and Workflow has come into it and brought that information to you and delivers it to you in a format that's simple to read, perhaps graphical. So how do you want to receive that data? And we'll move that data to you. So when we look at Sage Alerts and Workflow as what does it do? What's our value proposition when we go to market? It automates the detection of critical needed information, right? So you know what has to happen. You've built in KPIs around 300 or whatever systems you're working with. You want that information delivered to someone. Maybe it's yourself, maybe it's your team, maybe it's your customers or vendors. That information needs to be pushed to someone, and we want to automate that process so it doesn't become a task that someone's working with internally, that just automatically happens from your application, where the information is disseminated and sent out from that application. So when you hear Sage Alerts and Workflow, we've been around the marketplace for over 20 years. You'll hear it referred to as Knowledge Sync, perhaps as a name brand, or alerts on steroids. My invisible assistant, a smoke detector for your business. We're business activity monitoring. We're sitting inside the application and telling you, hey, there's a problem, and there's something that's going to affect your customer experience. There's something that's going to say to you at the end of the month, hey, if we'd only known, we could have solved that problem. We're here to help you solve that problem before it actually happens. So if you think of Alerts and Workflow as a software as a solution that automates if-then business process within your organization. So from the ERP, Sage 100, Sage 300, Sage X3, we may even have some BusinessWorks people on board here today. Sage HRMS, Sage CRM, and then a litany of other ISV solutions and door solutions that wrap around the enterprise. We've been able to work with and get alerts out of them so that you have one crystal view, not silos of data within your application, but one view across your whole enterprise. You tell Sage Alerts, if this activity or condition happens, then you do this. So for some examples for ERP, again, 300, HRMS, CRM, all the different applications that Sage has in its portfolio. If a new order comes in, then send an invoice to a client. You may have people doing that now, bring the order in, post the order, and then send the invoice out. We can have the software do that, bring that order in, post it, and send the invoice out. At the same time, we can look at some variables that you put in place and KPIs, so we'll talk about those later. If a PO needs approval, then notify a CFO. There's all kinds of different approval levels that you're going to be dealing with within the application. Some of them will be, hey, I can approve something that's under $5,000, but if there's over $5,000, we need 2 approvals. Let's use the software to notify, send an alert out to the people that need to notify through SMS, for example. So it pops up on their phone, hey, you need to approve this purchase order to go out. If a client's an overdue invoice, then put them on credit hold. A couple things that happen with invoices, and just review, once we send out that invoice, 30 days later, we want to send out another one. Maybe we want to copy in some other people within our organization, perhaps the salesman, saying, hey, this customer is just starting to get a little aging in their AR. Then we will get to 60 days, maybe we'll kind of bring in the salesman and the sales manager into the equation so that more people have visibility to this customer's AR issues. And maybe at 90 days, we go, hey, we've notified you twice, and now we're going to put you on credit hold and notify the entire company. So the software can do that, moves it forward. If an item drops within 10% of its reorder level, then create a PO. We all have min-max levels set up in the application. Why don't we use the software to notify us? Just give a pop-up on our screen saying, hey, we've reviewed all the orders in-house that you have. Your in-order house and the new order that's just come in will exceed the amount of quantity on hand that you have of the product. We should create that purchase order out to that vendor to get that replenished based on their delivery time. If a repeat buyer is not purchased in 30 days, let's notify the salesman. And we'll talk about that in a minute. From an HR point of view, because we'll have Sage HRMS, or maybe there's other HR Sage people perhaps that you're working with. If you hire someone, then send an employee onboard material. Depending where you are in the States or in Canada, you could be moving up to 18 different transactions between you and a new hire. Or when someone leaves your business, there's a series of documents that you have to have them fulfill and file. Let's use the software to make sure that those documents have been sent out, but also that you've been retrieved back in time to fulfill all the requirements they need by the government to hire and change people's job positions. If you have opportunities where you've got people that need WMIS documentation, or maybe they're a fork truck driver and they need security software, maybe there's all kinds of things that wrap around the things that they need to do their job, from licensing or approvals, we can make sure that when that's coming up to date due, I can send a notification to that employee saying, hey, you're about to not be able to ride that fork truck because your license has expired, for example. So we can use the software to slightly prod people that information is needed from them, or that we as a corporation have information and we need to send it back out to them so that it's moving in applicable time. Because this happens using the database and using the application, this is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week thing. It's not waiting for an employee to actually trigger an event. We're using the software itself to trigger those events. So the benefits of what we're doing, bringing to Sage Alerts and Workflow, is if-then process. If something has to happen, let's use the software to trigger those events. Let's use the software to make it happen and get that information out to those people. So tasks that we're looking at, task automation. If you're in your organization and there's repetitive things that you have to do within Sage 300, for example, of posting orders or checking inventory or so on, we can use that software to replicate exactly what that process is to free up your time for different tasks, if you will. So automating a process and moving that information forward. We also talk about exception management, where we're looking for things that haven't happened that should happen. We're always focused on, hey, 90% of the business is always running the same, chunk, does it every day. The exceptions are what I'm interested in as a manager. What's changed? How do I address it? And who should know about those exceptions? So we talk about from organizations, we can deliver forms, we can do threshold monitoring, auditing, inactivity monitoring, exception management, approvals, time response, and data cleansing. Those are the key points that Sage Alerts and Workflow bring to your installation or your company. So I've got a couple questions, and the premise of the talk is 10 things to talk about from your software point of view to get the value out of it, right? So what events are happening? So just in your mind, just as we go through this, think in your mind as I'm talking about it, where you can use the software internally. So we'll start with open up your desk drawer if there's at least one highlighter pen. Are you in a situation where you're printing out documents? You may be printing them out in Chris Report or Excel spreadsheets, and then going through them line by line for what's applicable to you? Are you passing those documents within your company so that they can find that information that they need out of that same report? We can use Sage Alerts and Workflow just to deliver the needles, not the haystack. So if there's information that you require out of the application, and you may want that on your desk when you get in the morning, you may want it at the day end, you may want it once a week. How you want that information and what particular parts of that information we can deliver directly to you. But let's get more specific. So forms deliveries. We're sending out CRISA reports, SSRS reports, any type of PDF files, information that's being shared within your organization, both internally and externally. So maybe your customers or vendors, or your, anyone around your business. From accounts receivable, we want to send out quotes. We want to send out invoices, statements, dunning notices. If you're doing that in a manual process, we can use the software, set it up, and at this particular time, based on a trigger event, and it could be a time, it could be an event that's moved the data between one part of the application to the next, that we send out that information to the appropriate recipient so that you're not having to worry about that actually happening. From an inventory point of view, if you have picking lists and receipts and transfers and physical counts and that sort of idea that you need to share with your shop floor people, that information can go to their pop-up on their screen. It can go to them as an email, or it can go to as an SMS. And lots of our customers want to use that SMS because most employees aren't sitting at their desk all day. They're running through the organization, they're in meetings and so on. We can deliver that information right to them at the appropriate time. So think of what you're doing internally from delivering forms, and let's see if we can use the software to help facilitate that. When we talk about exception management, if an invoice is CO terms, COD terms, right? Cash on delivery, is there something that's on that order that we need to be aware of or let our shipper aware of, that order must be fulfilled in full, no short shipments allowed, no shipments to receive on Saturday, those type of informations that's coming in. Those are exceptions outside of the norm of your business practices as you're dealing with your customers. Let's identify those and have the software then notify the people within the organization who that's applicable to. So if something's not supposed to be shipped and arrive on a Saturday, we need to let the shippers know that that product has to get out of the door by Wednesday, right? So for example, so we want to use the software for exception management, anything that's going to happen from an order coming in. You may have customers who don't allow substitutions. If I've ordered a SKU number, you have to deliver that SKU number. You have to deliver that SKU number in full quantity order. We don't allow back orders. We sometimes take discounts if your product is being distributed on a catalog or in a retail environment where they're taking discounts. You want to be aware of those as that order's coming in. And then you also want to be aware of on the back end of it, if something's going to be shipped and we have to have a hazardous goods shipment, we have to have a freezer truck shipment. We need to send that information to, both the bank, for example, or an invoice to someone else outside of the customer because we're doing financing. Any of those types of exceptions, we can use the software to identify as information's flowing in and out, and then have the software distribute that information accordingly. We may get into situations where we've got time responses. So I talked to the order coming inbound, and you may have this in your world where the order comes in, it has an order by date, a ship by date, a cancel by date. Everybody needs to know that because you can't miss the ship by date because that product needs to arrive perhaps at a cross dock because it's going to hit the cross dock and then distributed to the final destination stores or distribution centers. So we want to make sure that we've hit that kind of information and we're aware of it. Again, who did we need to tell internally? Is there approval processes that have to go on? Is there renewal dates that happen within the application? Lots of us are on subscription type things. Lots of us do car rentals and phone rentals and office leases, equipments, and that sort of idea. We want to be able to track those information so that we don't miss it, right? So we can send a report to the people that's important to, maybe the month before, and then again the week before, to make sure that that actually happens. So once we send an alert up, that alert can be scheduled out as many times or repetitive times that you need it to go out, so that we're making sure that everyone's being notified along the way. So time responses within your organization, if there's things that are happening that need to be aware of, both internally and externally to your customers, that things are moving along in the appropriate timeline to meet their deadlines, and we want to share that, let's have the software share it as it's moving through the system. Perhaps you have threshold monitoring. So thresholds can be from different things, total sales over to total overdue accounts, that sort of idea. If we look at a salesperson and we're looking at their threshold of discount levels, let's do a review of all the sales that they've done in the last 6 months and show their gross margin of their products that they've sold, show the discounts they've given, and find out, are we still making money going through that? Are we dealing with, when we're sending out purchase orders to vendors and we believe it's $1 per unit, but our landed costs and our shipping costs, because of all the things that are changing in the world, has added an additional 30 cents to that order? Do we want to know and have the software tell us, if when that product comes in, it's now worth $1.30 a unit, how many orders internally within Sage products is that going to affect? How much dollars am I going to lose, or what's my exposure to that? And then who do I need to know within the organization, perhaps the salespeople, perhaps the marketing people, that the landed cost has now changed. We need to change our pricing structure so that we're not doing this again. We're gonna absorb the orders that are in-house, but new orders coming in, we want to make sure that we take that $1.30 cost and change our margins. So we're looking at information as it's flowing in and out for threshold monitoring. So you set it up, how many times something should happen, and when it falls within it, over it, or under it, those thresholds, we want to send an alert to the appropriate people. You didn't make enough calls. Your quotes are sitting in too long in the quote bin. We have purchase orders outstanding. We have AR issues. All those types of things are threshold monitorings that we can trigger against and notify people in the organization. Perhaps you have assignments and approval, right? So we talked about, if a PO is over $5,000, we need to get the CFO to sign off, or multiple people to sign off, or drawings associated with that purchase order need to be received so that it can go into the part of the bill of materials to build it out. So as we're assigning an approval of sales orders and work orders, purchase orders, all those types of things, if you have that approval process within your organization, we can use the software to move the data within and out of 300 as it's moving through the different modules, to make sure the appropriate people are aware that something needs to be approved, or we're waiting on something, or we're waiting on some subcomponents to build a product, to bring it together. We're waiting on a truck to come in. We're waiting on a special shipping vessel to put the product in. All those things play into assignments and approvals as we're moving that information throughout the organization. And then we have enterprise auditing. I talked about, Sage 300, Sage CRM, Sage HRMS, different solutions that wrap around the application. If your enterprise has multiple different solutions going on, let's check to make sure all the information is correct across them. Are we got the same credit limits that are going on, the credit statuses, the items costs, assigning reps? So we're doing an audit within all your different systems, and I won't call them silos of data, but they all have their own database underneath. Let's make sure that we have continuity within our company so that we have one source of truth. We don't have multiple systems that say somewhat change to, but everything is assigned and prioritized as that information is shown. So if a credit limit changes, let's make sure all the databases notice the credit limit changes. If a customer goes on hold, if an item has changed along the way, or the item has just been discontinued or we have items that have been sitting in inventory. We want to be maybe perhaps put them on sales. Let's make sure that we've got all the information within the applications all together. So reports distribution. Maybe this is something that needs in your business. Are you receiving reports from someone in your organization every day? Is something showing up on your desk that you need to be aware of? And it may be at the end of the day, if you're in accounting, the AR aging report, could be our cash flow documents. It could be order statuses. If you're on in sales, how many orders did we get in today? If you're in shipping, how many orders got shipped today? What orders need to be shipped tomorrow? What orders need to be shipped this week? That type of information, so that you have some visibility of what's coming down the line. All those types of information, we can use Sage Alerts and Workflow to distribute within the organization. So we have the data is in 300 or Sage X3 or BusinessWorks or 100, the information's there. How do we get it out and into the right hands? We can't rely on people to tell someone. Let's have the software just going through and say, hey, you need to be aware of. And this may be something that you want once a day. It may be orders that you have in the morning. It may be stuff that goes out every day. If you're in an environment where you're doing omni-channel, where you're taking orders online and that order has to be then sent out that day, we want to track all that information so that it's actually happening and we are fulfilling our obligations to our customers. Do we have data cleansing problems? I think, you know, lots of customers who have systems that have been around for a long time, things have changed, people have changed, processes have changed within an organization. The way that we used to do stuff, we've changed to new stuff. Do we ever do a data cleansing? You're ever in the situation where, hey, I can probably find if I did an email blast to all my customers that I'm going to get a 10% bounce back. Because those people have moved on, or their phone numbers are changed, or we've missed a digit, or we haven't added the area code to the phone number. We can use the software to look at the database and say, okay, based on what should those fields have filled, we can run a report and say, we're missing this type of information within that. So we're missing an @ sign, we're missing an area code, we're missing, you know, instead of 9 digits, we've got 8 digits in a phone number. We have multiple ship to codes within for that customer. We have multiple billing addresses for that customer, but some aren't complete in one database versus another. So data cleansing across your application, across your enterprise, helps clean up that information and make sure that we have continuity. When we get bounce backs from you know, marketing blasts or sales blasts or educational blast, we want to be able to bring that back in and identify what are we missing from that across the board, so that we start to get cleaner data as we're moving it through, and so that we can get a true audit of what's going on. If we have old product numbers, and if you're in a situation where you're reusing the SKU numbers, you know, you run a SKU number for 5 years or 8 years, and then you reuse it again. Or do we have any old SKU numbers in our system that are being repetitive, that we're actually calling 2 different products the same SKU number because we've got, you know, 10,000 different SKUs. So those types of things happen in a company, and having Sage Alerts and Workflow, just monitoring that helps saves a lot of issue that we don't, though they have the same SKU number, that we don't actually send the wrong product to the customer. Then inactivity monitoring. This one's really important, I think, and a great component of the software, if anything. We hire salespeople and territory managers, right? We all have them. I'm one of them myself, where you have somewhere between 250, 350 different accounts. But you're highly incentive, as we've incented all our salespeople, for new customer ads. So that's where their high commission dollars are. And that's really where their focus on is, what am I going to bring in for the month of sales? And my customer base, which may be 250, 350 customers, I truly don't interact with. I let sales really interact with them by drip marketing information so they know that we're still alive. but I really don't get involved with my customers until there's a fire and something happens. And then I really, I've been interacting with that client for that moment in time. Let's use the software for inactivity monitoring. So we can look at all of the customers and say, statistically, they've always ordered some transaction every 4 to 6 weeks. So if you fall outside that window, I want to know about it. You've always ordered the same dollar value or within this threshold of dollar value. If they fall outside that, let's notify the salesperson and they should contact them. If a customer of yours has historically ordered these same 3 SKU items, and all of a sudden based on this quantity of those SKU items, and one of those variable changes, who needs to know about that? Perhaps the salesperson needs to call the customer and say, look, we've just noticed you've dropped one of the SKUs that you've historically ordered from them. Has something changed just in your business model? Or perhaps you've just added 2 new SKUs. What's changed in your business? Have you done an acquisition? Are you adding a new line that we should be aware of? What else can we be offering to you, Mr. Customer, along the way? Because we're seeing that you're growing. That in a business process would have just happened because we've got the SKUs, we've got the orders would have just processed through. It would have been the end of the month, end of the quarter. Someone would have run a report and said, oh, by the way, if we'd only known this customer had stopped buying this product 30 days ago or 60 days ago, or their product mix has changed. They've dropped a SKU and they've added a SKU, right? So by having the software sending that information out to the salesperson, what a great tool for them to be monitoring their customers while they're out getting new customer ads. They've got some software in the back watching their back that something's not changed or is changing within their customer profile as it's sitting there with orders processing through. So think about that as a valuable tool for using Sage Alerts and Alertflow. We want to look at the number of quotes that we're processing through. What's the day end of the quote? Some because of shipping costs really right now to a certain extent, we only write quotes for 7 days, right? And then we have to requote after that, right? It's a fixed period of time, especially if we're doing imports. It's based on shipping costs. So we want to be able to have the stale dating of these quotes. And then is there too many quotes sitting out there that are really 60, 90, 120 days old that the customer has moved on, changed their mind? It's a no decision, if you will. Are there customers out there that haven't been quoted? Or is there customers out there that haven't been touched, right? So if I could say we have 250 customers and you've only touched 40 of those this year, who's touching those other customers? Probably they're being serviced by someone if it's not you. So let's have the software say, hey, you need to repetitively touch these customers, whether it's once a quarter or whatever the number is that works in your business. But if you haven't done it, let's try a notification to the salesman and the sales manager that we're missing these opportunities. We should be in front of them. So inactivity monitoring is just as important as monitoring what's going to happen. So anytime, anywhere alerts. And this is, excuse me, as we send alerts and we're creating data, the data is coming and it's going to pop up on your screen. So as you're sitting here listening to me, your screen's sitting there, and all of a sudden you're going to get a pop-up saying, hey, you need to be aware of something. An email is going to go off. We sent you an email of some information that you need to know about, or maybe just an SMS is coming to your phone that's, hey, you need to be aware of. But you don't want that information coming to you at night after 5 o'clock or after 6 o'clock. You don't want that information coming to you on your holidays or PTO time. So we can set up those alerts to be specific to times and dates, and that sort of is a threshold. But we can also say, I don't want this alert to, if you're getting 8 alerts a day, these 6 alerts I don't need on the weekend. I don't need at my time off. But these 2 alerts, they're really important to me. And it may be day end sales, it could be the AR aging report, depending on what's important to you. That's the one report you want every day, no matter where you sit on the earth. That's the one you've got to have. So let's just, when we set it up, make sure that those reports are going to you and the appropriate people. You may have situations where I don't need the report, but during my PTO, I want this report to go to my assistant or another person within the organization. So we can set those up so the reports are going to multiple people. We can also set it up so based on timing, I start with a small group of people to send that information. If we don't get a response and we don't see a trigger change within the Sage, we then send it to a greater group of people that information needs to go, and you were missing something. And then we can do a company-wide or we can do a customer-wide information sharing if need be, using the software. So anything that needs to be communicated can be communicated at the appropriate time to the appropriate people. Now, so if you think about the way that we come to deliver the solution, what are the events? It's trigger events, right? That's something has happened and you need to know about it. Remember, we're a smoke detector for your business. We're sitting inside of 300. We're monitoring things that are important to you and your business. And when one of those variable changes, we're going to tell you or just tell everybody that there's something that's going to go on. And this is the value of it versus a BI tool where you have to drill into it. You have to be on the outside knowing where the problem is and go looking for it. If you look at it from the other way, we're on the inside yelling out to you that here's the problem you need to be aware of. So clients are overdue. If an item is below its minimum, create a PO. If an order discount is less than 25%, put it on hold. If an item hasn't sold in 30 days, lower its price, put it on sale, add it to another product proposal. If a quote expires in seven days, schedule a follow-up call. So these are the types of things that trigger events that we can look at within 300. If this happens, then do that, right? So back to my original premise, if then do this. And so the same process with triggered events. Trigger events are moving from module to module. So if we think of Sage 300 as GL, AR, AP, PO, IC, right? As things are moving within that application, we may need to notify people internally or externally. If we're missing a date, if something has a date trigger to it, if we're missing an amount, if we're missing a quantity, anything that has a variable to it, we can notify against. And truly, you can set up as many as you need to do this. When we ship out the product, we're going to supply you with, depending on the application, with Sage 300, we're going to give you 60 different alerts as prepackaged. With HRMS, we're going to give you probably another 60. With 100, we're going to give you about 80 different alerts. These alerts are soft coded. You can modify them any way you want. You can add your own. So if something specific to your business and your business trigger needs, you can write your own events. But these things become invaluable to your business as a set it and forget it type software. So I asked you at the beginning of the conversation, just in your mind, does this make sense? Did anything I said, yeah, I could see the value in what you're offering as a solution and move it forward. So you can all of a sudden make that information make sense. So when we monitor things from how does Sage Alerts and Workflow work? We're monitoring apps. So if you have an email solution, say, or Microsoft 365 or Outlook or something, and your company is getting sales at, support at, info at, help at, those type of things, we can monitor your inbound email and make sure that it's getting a response time, especially if it's sales at or info at, right? Because people are looking for information about your product, your business. We want to respond to them in a reasonable amount of time that it just doesn't sit there. So let's monitor that and then make sure that we're getting response out to those people who are looking for information on you. And more so with support. If you have customer down, right, that's our hottest challenge across the board for all industries. So we want to get the right people on it right away. Let's notify all those people. If we're getting inbound email that says customer down, right? So we can look at all the different words within an email. You select which ones that are important to you as a business, and then we'll monitor those as they come. We look at on-premise apps and cloud apps. So around Sage, there's Sage connected solutions. There's Sage solutions that will be offered that are still client server in a perpetual model. We have Sage solutions that are sold in the cloud model, right? So we're monitoring both desktop and cloud solutions at the same time. So it's not just one silo of data, we're looking at multiple applications. We can look at website. If you're using Sage HRMS and you've got postings or you're looking for people and they're on Indeed or those types of solutions, we can monitor out to those and see for keywords and bring them back into it. So once we get all that information, we need to notify. We can send you an email. We can send multiple emails out to multiple people within the organization or internally, externally. We can send text messages. We can send it by FTP. We can do WhatsApp of sending it. How do we want to get that information to the appropriate people at the right time? All the different forms and documents that are generated in Sage products, we can then capture and send, save, capture, send, file, all those types of things can happen with forms documents. The reports that we're generating, certainly Crystal, SSRS, or any Sage third-party reporting that Sage is working with, will have a connection to move that information back. And a lot of the information that we're sharing with people, they don't want just, send me a Word document because I don't have time. Give me a visual, show me a chart, send me a trend, send me some insights that I can just look at and say, okay, it's green, we're good, or it's red, or it's orange, right? Those I need to be aware of. That type of information we can deliver in a graphical way. So if you're in a situation where you need to get everybody's attention and information out to them, you may have a situation where you have a monitor mounted up in your office or in your warehouse or on your shop floor, for example. We can feed the information to that monitor so it's real time. So new orders coming in, shipments that have to go out, what has to be packaged today, those type of information, we can make visual on the shop floor in real time as it's happening within the application. We're uploading it to it, so it becomes a visual delivery to the team out there so they know what's going on. So updating applications, synchronization, when we look at Sage 300 and we look at HRMS and we look at CRM and we look at all these other different databases of the application, we can look at them simultaneously so that information is not in silos. We're looking across your entire enterprise. So if something's changing, we can make sure it's changed in all the applications, or we're aware of data in other applications to deliver out to the customer. There's no sense scheduling machinery to build a product if the person that's licensed or certified to run that mill, if you will, or that piece of equipment is about to go on PTO. So we can make people aware of that type of information as an alert that this is going to affect your business. So if you determine that you could benefit from Synchronization in the next 6 term, if you can afford it, right? So based on what I just told you as a story, and you probably have something like that going on in your organization right now. If we said it took some staff or that you have, or maybe it's yourself, just 15 minutes a day to do one of those tasks or multiple tasks, and we put that over the course of a month to do that, we're just saying as a number, it's about $175 a month, right? For someone to do all those tasks that I've just laid out. Sage Alerts and Workflow costs $119 a month. So everything that I just talked about, you'll be able to get into your solution or into your company for, basically under $200 a month, bring it into and find an ROI. So as I said earlier, with Sage 300, you're going to get about 60 different pre-canned alerts that you can just start firing that day. If you can get 3 or 4 of those up in a week, all of a sudden your ROI of this product is less than 90 days of getting that active within your business and start getting those alerts out. And we find that, because it is a set it and forget it, remember it's that smoke detector, it's sitting on the server and it's just spitting out information for it. People start to rely on that information coming to them every day. It helps them in their business process. It helps them make their day go faster when they can get that information brought to them and they're not having to go look for it. So that's our price point. A system of actionable insight is the best means by which you increase the responsiveness of your organization and differentiate yourself from your competition. In the Sage world, we have over 12,000 customers who are running this product within a Sage product itself. Heavily weighted on Sage 100, 300, and HRMS, where these products are, the Sage Alerts and Workflow is sitting and delivering this type of value in every day. So where do I get this fine information about what we're doing here? Checking the time. So if you go to Sage Alerts and Workflow or workflow.com, you're going to find all kinds of information about the product, documentation. I'll make sure that Pur-Logic has absolutely the current stuff so they can get it out to you as well. But here you can go and view the demos of the product. You can see the product, but more so, we're going to let you download the product. We're going to give you the product free of charge for 30 days. You can download the full event pack. You can download the full product. You can bring it into your solution. You can call our support. Our support will assist you getting it up and running. We believe in the product. Sage believes in the product, that we're going to let you run it full functioning for 30 days to get it up and running, feel comfortable with it. You're not going to fire off 80 alerts in that point in time, but if you can fire off 2 or 3 that are meaningful to your business, you're going to see the value of it, and continue on. When you then go and purchase the solution, all we do is we send you a new license key so that anything that you've done through the demo component of the software, you're not going to lose. So you're not going to have to do a new install. We're just going to ask you to put in this new license key to it, and then we generate it out. So if you're running in a subscription model, which we hope you are, we'll start tying our subscription price to that, because you're going to order it from Sage. So it's not going to be 2 different billing cycles, if you will. It'll be 1 billing cycle, and it'll simultaneously happen with the Sage product. If you're running in a perpetual market still, we'll generate out, and so we'll prorate to your date of perpetual license renewal, so that they are the same as well. So we're not hitting you 2 different times throughout the course of the year. So we're the billing, the exercise, and that sort of idea will all be tied together through Sage. It's a product ordered through Sage by your Sage partner. So say documentation, videos. We also have about 50 different YouTube videos up there online. They're 12 to 18-minute videos that talk about, hey, I want to do this specifically. I want to do something with my AR aging. I want to attach a report. I want to generate a report in SQL, and I want to attach it or do something like that. We've got different, as I said, 12 to 18-minute videos up on YouTube that you can go and work your way through. The documentation about the manuals, the setup and that sort of idea are easily read. Because we sell this around the world, we sell it in different time zones, we had to make sure that the way that we deliver the product is you don't have to be an IT professional. You can be, if you're comfortable working with Crystal reports, if you're comfortable working with SQL, that's even better. But off you go and getting the software installed with your partner's assistance. And so with that, I will thank you very much. I'll open it up. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them from now on. Thanks, Angela.
Thank you so much, Greg, and thank you to everyone for attending today. I don't see anything currently in the chat box, but I want to encourage everyone to reach out if they do have any questions, or if you'd like to book a more in-depth discussion. Again, everyone will be receiving a copy of the recording shortly. I want to thank you again for joining us, and thank you so much to Greg from Sage Alerts and Workflow.
Perfect. Thanks very much, guys, and have a great day.